All right, these are some great practical tips when you find yourself in the midst of a scorpionic, freak out attack of jealousy, paranoia. You're worried something awful is going to happen. I've done videos and content describing and are trying to articulate what that experience feels like, but how about some tips or things I've found helpful throughout my life when actually in the thick of those situations? Number one is finding a way to get out of it. When you are in the midst of a feeling of scorpionic jealousy, like you're worried that your partner's going to do something, maybe it's just general, maybe they're out at a party and they didn't respond to a text fast enough, or they're someone at work that you're worried about, or whatever. Typically, Scorpios are not strangers to that feeling where they feel like something is spinning and they get an idea or they get a thought and they have a what if, and then they start connecting things to it and it snowballs and this fear sets in. It's like this icy paranoia or a cold sweat, and you start thinking, well, oh, this could happen, and then what did this thing mean? And was this a sign? And am I missing things? I gotta be a detective and I gotta interrogate my partner. I gotta figure it out. And you start getting so freaked out and worked up. In those moments, it's hard to stay rational and calm, and it's hard to stay the person that you wanna be. And granted, I'm talking about situations where it's like irrational jealousy. If you are with someone that's consistently rubbing up against boundaries or making you feel scared or uncomfortable, it's not a great situation, and I wouldn't recommend staying in that. But when you're in these moments when you are, again, just overcome with the thoughts and the fear and you don't know what's what, you feel like you're hanging on for dear life, one of the most important things to do is to try and find a way to step out of that. You can't wage war with those thoughts. You shouldn't try to face them directly. Maybe you need to, but not in a heightened emotional state. You need to find ways to emotionally self-regulate, and that could be different things to different people. For some, maybe that's physical exercise, physical outlet, going for a run, lifting. For some people, it's journaling, taking a walk, whatever it is. Just get out of it and try not to react while you're in that state, because you can regret it, and you can regret not having the groundedness and the calmness to really approach this situation. Even if it's something that you want to address with a partner, it usually doesn't go well when you go for it right away. And I know that feeling, it's so enticing, like I gotta deal with it now, I gotta ask him the questions. I know it's gonna make me look bad, or I know it's gonna cause a fight or tension, I gotta do it. You don't necessarily have to do it, you really don't. So number one, you just gotta let go and try to find a way to separate yourself from the state, because you can't see the ocean that you're in when you're in it. Number two is it helps to really challenge yourself and ask yourself what you really want out of the situation, what you're asking for. Scorpio fear of abandonment or betrayal or a partner lying or cheating on them, anything that contributes to this thing we might call jealousy. Is it really attached to something that's rational? Because I think in a lot of ways, a Scorpio fear of something drastic happening or betrayal, it's sometimes not so much a fear or a jealousy as much as it is having to the reality that despite how much we might want a specific emotional connection or a love or a bond with a partner to stay fixed and cemented forever, sometimes that's just not how it works. Relationships can come and go, and the commitment and the demonstration of love and the giving of vulnerability can come blissful connection and great things, but it always comes with the possibility of heartbreak. And I think it's important to recognize that as much as you want to try and control the unpredictable and uncertain future, and no one is capable of doing that, and no one is really entitled to ask for that. Yes, you're entitled to certain in the context of a romantic relationship, but no one can necessarily guarantee you what's exactly going to happen. And I think Scorpios get so used to feeling like they can control things, and especially if a relationship's been the same way for a while, or it's really a habit of routine, there's things you can expect. When something happens, like maybe a partner stays at a party later, or they answer a text a little bit later than normal, it throws that whole thing off. And so instead of really reacting to the actual threat, it's more of just this disconnect that has to be reconciled between, this controlled scenario and this new change that I didn't ask for. It's no longer in my control, and now I'm so freaked out because I'm just suddenly feel like I'm not in this state of control. I think it helps sometimes to reduce importance and reduce the obsession in two ways. The first way, a little bit harder, but I think more meaningful, is to remind yourself that with the opportunity to love someone, there's always the possibility that there's going to be heartbreak, that things won't work out. You have to know that. That's the buy-in cost of going into anything. And just because that possibility is there, does that mean that you're not going to enter into those things or deprive yourself of those opportunities? I mean, I think not. And so remind yourself that even if worst case scenario, there's heartbreak or there's something awful that happens, it's another form of life. It's another form of meaning. It's something to be experienced, and it doesn't have to be so awful. By living, we have the opportunity to fall in love, and it's beautiful. And we have the opportunity to experience heartbreak, and it's hard, but it also gives growth and meaning. And with heartbreak, it's also the possibility of falling in love again, which is great. So really question when you're in these moments. Are you really concerned or think that something as specific is happening, or are you just like upset that you can't control the attention of your partner? They don't have their light shined on you. They're forgetting to text you. Does it mean something awful is happening, or are you just reacting to now this perceived loss of control? Are you thinking, oh, I have a little bit less control. I don't have attention of this person. Does it mean that everything is falling apart and collapsing? And no, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So sometimes try and reduce importance. Remind yourself of what's really going on. Remind yourself that you're just reacting to what you perceive to be a shift in your own matrix. Remember that what you might be expecting out of reality in your experience may not be a reasonable or rational ask. And also remind yourself that these moments of discomfort are really good towards building long-term muscle, towards building that trust, towards staying centered and grounded around circumstances and in situations where we feel like we've lost control. The last thing I'll mention is that I think so much of the intensity of that experience, that paranoia, that fear, is tied up with this feeling of powerlessness. It's a related feeling to the loss of control, but it's a powerlessness, I think, unique to paranoia in relationships or jealousy, where we feel like we're imagining this worst case scenario and we're imagining that we're not there, we can't control it. Like we're not in this situation, maybe our partner is somewhere else, maybe they're out of town, whatever the circumstances are, these might be the circumstances contributing to the paranoia. We feel like we can't intervene. And the nature of those worst case scenarios, like cheating or infidelity or developing a relationship or an affinity with another person, it feels like we are losing influence, we are losing position, we will be betrayed, we'll be lied to, we will be made to look like a fool. Like all those things, those are all states of lack, of weakness, of total powerlessness. And we're framing and reacting to the discomfort by creating these worst case narratives in which we're like a victim or something. And it's really hard sometimes to even engage in the first couple tips that I mentioned when you feel this like incredible lack of powerlessness, like you want to intervene because you feel like you have to. It's really helpful sometimes to remember that, devoting love and trust to the people in your life that you love, knowing that there's no guarantees, is not like a weak thing to do. It's an incredibly hard thing to do. It's a powerful thing to do. Knowing that there's no guarantees in life and choosing to give that attention to someone or something, it's really powerful. And loving someone is always powerful. You have to be mindful and you have to be wise and you have to make sure you're investing your energy in the right people and trusting the right kind of people, and work on yourself so that you bring the right type of people into your life. But if something ultimately happens or someone does something or you're betrayed or lied to, remind yourself that there's nothing that you did wrong. There's nothing that you would do differently, because You showed up, you gave love, you trusted. Whatever happens, if something bad happens, it's all like on the other person. Like, yes, it hurts. Like, yes, you might feel bad. You might feel rejected, heartbroken, whatever. But you still leave that situation with your authenticity intact. You leave having taken the high road, having been the best that you could be. It might be hard if you're not used to thinking in this way. It might be hard to get in your mind, or maybe what I'm saying is obvious. But I'm saying this because I think sometimes the powerful thing for a Scorpio seems to be, oh, I'm going to be the best detective. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to figure out, no one's going to be able to fool me. But stepping back and saying, I trust you, and if you want to fool me or you want to hurt me, that's on you. That's going to hurt you in the long run. That's going to say more about your own wounds in the long run. There's a powerfulness, there's a power in just remaining steadfast in giving trust. And I think sometimes when it's especially hard to do that, or your core fears are being challenged, remind yourself of the power of standing in the driver's seat and continuing to be there and be present and find ways to work through it instead of reacting, instead of attacking, instead of trying to escape and predict all possible outcomes of the future. Stand strong. Get in touch with your inner power. It can be really incredible in terms of weathering some of those emotionally dysregulated storms that cause us to react and attack and accuse and do kind of not so great things like interrogating our partner that do end up actually eroding trust in the long run, and actually sometimes start making some of our fears more like self-fulfilling prophecies. Anyway, short and sweet video. I hope this wasn't too abstract. Some of this stuff has been really helpful to me. Hopefully some of it resonates with you, and talk to you more soon.